real life.
Let's get started with Premed Office Hours episode, I don't even know, 139, I suppose we'll call it. My name is Ryan Gray. If you don't know who I am, shame on me for not being available more for you. I'm a physician by training. I've written several books that I have right here. The Premed Playbook series. I host the Premed Years podcast, and I am lucky enough to be blessed with these two amazing people every day in my life. I'll start with the one, the only, Dr. Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director at TMDSAS.
Yep.
How you doing, my friend?
Good. Excited dealing with all the great students this year, and also those from last year who are still, making decisions about where they're going to go to school and things like that. And so it's an exciting time of year.
Yeah, you got news that one of your students that you worked with last cycle got into an Ivy League school and some other amazing schools, and still waiting to hear from more amazing schools.
Yep.
So that's fun news.
Yeah, it is. It's
how does that make you feel when you get that news from one of your babies?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, I love to celebrate those things with the students, and it's always funny to me how it doesn't matter how good the news is for the students, they also still worry about things, and so I, even at this point, I'm still sort of calming them down. Yes, it's going to be okay, and stuff like that. So, until I think often until the day they walk in the door and
they don't
sit down in the classroom, they have these worries that something's going to happen. So,
yeah, that's rough. It's rough.
Yeah,
it's something we don't talk about a lot, but we experienced some of that last year too, that a lot of people had sort of like post-acceptance blues, right? It's like, I've been working for this for so long, and now what? And like, am I really qualified? Do I belong? Am I going to survive? Or
did they make a mistake and somehow they're going to come back later and say, "Oh, we made a mistake. You're not going to be here." That kind of thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that does happen. I see some emails go out. They're like, "Oops, sorry." There was the infamous Mayo incident a couple of years ago where students sent, I think, 2,000 pounds of mayonnaise to Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, after mistakenly getting emails about interviews or acceptances or something. So. Anyway, let's keep rocking and rolling. Rachel Grubbs, co-founder at Mapped, also here today. MCAT test prep expert and pre-med expert for 20 or so years. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. This is always one of the best parts of my week. And yeah, it's a lot of acceptances just in the last few days. It's always so wonderful. We talk a lot about the ideal timeline, about we really want you to apply in May or June and get your secondaries wrapped up by mid-July. Hopefully you're getting interviews by August, September, October, because that's just so much more comfortable, right? If you have an acceptance in October, like your winter is going to be glorious. You deal with your post-acceptance blues real early, but this still counts, right? And we always say this is the hardest part, is the waiting. Is October, November, December, January, February, March. Acceptances are still coming in.
Yep.
And once you all start, after your white coat, no one's going to care if you got an acceptance in October or on May 20th.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Unless you're that person that got like the acceptance the day before classes started, they're like, "Who's the new kid?"
Yeah, right.
That's okay. You're still there. So, all right, friends, we are here to answer your questions for the next 53 minutes. We'll get in as many as we can. Go to premed.tv to ask those questions. And don't forget, a Mapped Pro account, which is only $90 a year, allows you to ask as many questions as you want, as often as you want, right inside of Mapped. So go check that out. You get 30 days for free using that referral code 30 days free. Mapped Pro also gives you access to our newest feature, My LORs, which is a replacement for that thing called Interfolio, a third-party letter of recommendation service with a small asterisk. This application cycle 2023-2024, we cannot use Scott, TMDSAS. Scott wasn't able to pull his strings over there. They will not let us use their service this cycle, but we're working very closely with them for next cycle. So go check it out.
All right, got some questions.
I'm trying to do my Bewitched. Wiggle my nose. Jawad, do I need, showing my age, do I need to do a post-bacc? Senior year was a 4.0 and 30 credits. Also, why do I need to add household income? Does our household income mean taxable income or gross income? Thanks as always. So, Scott, we often talk about post-bacc, masters. Sometimes students do what we expect them to do for a post-bacc, kind of still wrapped into their normal undergraduate timeline. 30 credits, 4.0. It's hard with just that one little snippet of information, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would need to know more about, obviously that I'm guessing Jawad kind of represents a upward trend for you. If you're asking this question, that seems logical, that maybe the senior year is notably different than, past years in your undergraduate experience. And so without knowing that, it's a little bit difficult to say, but I definitely think that's a good sign, and would be something that would definitely be considered by admissions committees, the last year being such a great year for you.
Yep.
So without more information, it's a little bit tough to say, do you need a post-bacc or not?
Yeah. And then in terms of household income, I'm pretty sure that that's just data gathering from the AAMC. They're not really using that information for or against you. Scott, I don't know if you have any other inside information. I think that's just data.
No. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it gives insight into, kind of what your socioeconomic status is and, things like that. But other than that, I don't think it's really very meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did just do a quick Google, which when in doubt, friends, Google. It does say adjusted gross income, so gross,
Okay.
not net. But yeah, it's whatever the forms are asking for.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's keep rocking. Cam 1, Kaz 11. Should I register for the preview and Casper now to take in the summer? Though I haven't taken my April 29th MCAT just yet. Do we need our MCAT to complete our application for schools to review? Rachel, we were just talking about Casper. Casper isn't open for registration yet, unfortunately. So preview is, though. When is a good time for those?
Yeah, so I tend to think of doing your situational judgment test sort of as part of your secondaries, by which I mean typically it's okay if you're taking them after you've done your primary application submission and you're in that process of pre-writing, submitting secondaries, which to me roughly means like June, July. That said, there are limited test dates, and that might mean looking ahead, especially for the preview that's already open, and booking that test date. And I also don't think you have to wait until then. So I say think of it as part of your secondaries, just because you have to assign yourself that to do somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to get an earlier spring preview date and you just want to get it off your to-do list, go for it. Casper, for whatever weird reason, is still listing test dates for the 2023 entry year. I think there's like one more in March, maybe one more in April. And you do have to take the Casper with the cohort you're applying with.
Yep.
So you literally, even though there are some spring dates for the Casper, they're not for the 2024 entry year. So we've talked to our friends over at Casper about that. I mean, I think students would love to see summer dates by now. So hopefully they'll have those posted soon so that you can start registering.
Yep.
But just keep in mind that also means that on Casper, if you're looking at the list of schools that require it, that's last year's data. Make sure you're staying up to date.
Yep. And then can we submit our applications without an MCAT score? Yes, you can. That is one thing that you don't need to submit your primary application. Some students, what they'll do is they'll fill out their application. They'll add one school. They'll designate one school to send that application to, and then that will allow you to submit it, but you're not spending the money for each of the schools before you get your score back and before you're comfortable.
So it's interesting, though, because the way CAMCAS worded this is, do we need our MCAT to complete our application for schools to review?
That is yes.
Yeah, typically, yeah, right. Most schools will wait until your MCAT score is in. It's primary applications, secondary applications, letters of recommendation, and MCAT score. Potentially Casper, potentially Preview, for an application to be complete for them to then review it.
Right. And this is language that, we're always trying to refine and improve our messages. And I think we've done, as a team here at Med School HQ, a great job of getting you guys, you pre-meds, to understand it's important to submit early. What we're now trying to kind of help you clarify is you must also complete relatively early, right? So all those pieces, still have to be in if you want the schools to take a look.
Yep. Rachel, watch your hair on your mic.
No, I don't want to. Thank you.
What about my hair?
You and me, brother. You and me.
You have a different problem with your hair.
This is true.
Questions. Let's keep rocking. Laura asks, I'm worried about my non-science GPA. I have a 1.8 my senior year for 6 credits. It was 2 classes. I don't know what to do. My science GPA is a 3.6. Any advice? Laura, what happened? This is a great situation, potentially, Rachel, of someone who has a decent GPA, but the story is, what's going on?
Right.
Things are not ending well. Things are not on a good trajectory. And even with a decent GPA of 3.6, science GPA, schools may have some questions here.
Yeah. We talk a lot about upward, downward trends. And one of the things we try to convey is that trends are going to matter more or less depending on when they happen and how they impact your GPA. So, for example, if Laura had a 3.9 cum and she got, 1B or 1C and it went down to 3.8, we don't call that a downward trend, right? But a 1.8 senior year for 6 credits makes me nervous, even though it's only 6 credits. That's gonna, sort of stand out. And so it just makes me wonder what happened, because when med schools are looking at GPA, they aren't just looking at the number. They're trying to see, are you prepared to handle the rigor of med school? And something has happened in the last year that's made that maybe a little bit more of a question for you. So I think I would want to still look at your full GPA analysis. I'm going to try to quickly turn on screen share here. Share screen, got mapped. All right. So we've got our friend downward demo here. That gives you a little bit of a clue of the example I'm going. And so I'll zoom in a little here, so you can just look at the GPA graph. And then if we get rid of this blue cum and orange science, gray non-science, now we can see, like, here's a real extreme kind of downward trend.
You're not sharing. Sorry.
I'm not sharing.
There you go. Now we got it.
Okay. So you guys can see this sort of line. This is an extreme downward trend. And it doesn't impact the cum as much, right? Cum is 339. That's not bad. But if I'm a med school admissions person, this is going to make me nervous, because it seems like school's gotten progressively harder for the student. Now, with your question, it's hard to say, because it sounds like it's just a 6 credit blip, but I would definitely like to look at it. I would recommend, Laura, that you go to map.com if you haven't already and fill out this data. When you create a free Mapped account, you automatically get a free trial here to Mapped Chat, and you can message with us. Let me back out. Well, that's so weird that selected conversation is like not there. Anyway, you'll have an advisor message here, and you'll be able to message with us, and let us give you a little bit more feedback. But yeah, I've definitely got some concerns for you about what's happening with your trend.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so may need a little bit of recovery there with post-bacc work, something like that.
Speaking of recovery, speaking of recovery, Scott is rebooting his computer. He'll be back briefly. But Alexis, if you want to hit us up with another comment or question, we'll keep trucking.
Jess asks, are there different expectations for post-bacc interviews, or if you are in your 30s and have 15,000 plus hours of clinical social work, time as a medic, and shadowing? I have an interview next week. Congratulations for that interview. Post-bacc interviews are about the same as medical school interviews. They're going to want to know why you want to be a doctor, why you're pursuing this post-bacc stuff, all of that good stuff. So my interview book, I think, works perfectly fine for why do you want to be a doctor type questions. It's going to be a very similar, hopefully, style of interview for your post-bacc.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yeah.
All right.
What else? Ooh, big one.
Christine asks, my son is, hello, Christine, thank you for coming, is a bioscience major at a small New York college, and he is finishing his sophomore year. He has a 4.0 major, 300 clinical hours, and was recently accepted at Cold Spring Harbor Lab for molecular research for a paid undergrad program this summer. He is unsure if he wants to go into research or clinical medicine. Should he decide before the summer, or is it okay to wait until after the summer program? Dr. Scott Wright, as a former director of admissions, you've looked at a lot of applications, potentially seeing where passions are located with how students are portraying themselves on an application. How early? I'm not sure if this question is, my son isn't sure if he wants to be a doctor or a researcher, or if my son isn't sure if he wants to do research as a doctor or do research. I'm not sure exactly what this question is, but what advice do you have for Christine here?
So, first of all, let me apologize for if my internet is going weird. So anyway, if I zone out here for a second, I apologize. I would say the two are not mutually exclusive. You can, to answer the direct question is, I would say wait until after the summer to have more insight into what's going on with research and if your son really connects with it, et cetera. But I think that I don't see it's necessarily an either or kind of thing. There are a lot of researchers, even basic researchers, that do clinical medicine. So, I don't see that as a dichotomy there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So go do your research program. Have your son go do his research program, and it's keep figuring it out, keep testing things, figuring out what's best for him.
Mm-hmm.
I may be interested in taking a gap year after college graduation, but the way the MCAT testing and result dates work, I may have to take 2 gap years to get everything back. Taking 2 gap years, a red flag to medical schools. Thank you so much.
No.
I'm not sure. I mean, you're in complete control of MCAT testing and stuff, so I'm not sure why you would have to do that, especially if you're taking a gap year. But yeah, no issues. We were talking the other day. 65-ish% of students take at least 1 year off of school, so not a problem. Caitlin asks, is it okay to have an up and down trend as long as the overall GPA is decent? Yeah, so this comes up all the time, Rachel, right? We talk about trends, and I'll see a student with like a 3.89 GPA, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a downward trend. I'm like, Nobody cares about your trends.
Right.
At a 3.89, 3.9, whatever, your trends don't really matter at that point.
Right.
And so if you have mapped things out on Mapped, and your trend line is doing this, but your overall GPA is a 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, no questions asked.
Right.
You're good, Caitlin.
And if you're not sure, go fill out a Mapped account and let us look with you.
Yes.
What's next?
Vibey Yo-Yo. I'm currently working on my personal statement. I hope it includes yo-yos in your personal statement. And I know the story I want to tell. However, I am struggling on the reflection part of my story. Any tips? Rachel, we see this is a big struggle for all of our students. Reflection. What do you want from me? What does this mean?
Yeah, it's funny too, because like there's this piece of me, with a lot of respect, I'm like, I don't know, I can't get in there and do the reflection for you. But I do also understand where you're coming from, right? Because so much of what pre-meds have trained themselves to do in recent years is work really hard to learn complex science and math concepts and work on understanding and retention. And so oftentimes, and I'm generalizing, but oftentimes pre-meds have let some of their reading, thinking, writing skills, their critical analysis skills go to the wayside. And I'm not talking about talent, I'm talking about training, right? So, I mean, it's one reason I always like to see pre-meds for your humanities, not that you have to go be that, but if you're someone who's balancing the pre-med requirement and still continuing to take courses that challenge you to read, write, think just about, topics in the world, I think that it often puts you in better shape for this moment, but it's not too late. And if you're struggling to write, which is often where I find people are stuck, is like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to write. Is it going to be okay if my essay looks like? Take your hands off the keyboard, right? Talk to your stuffed animals, talk to your pets, talk to your best friends, talk to yourself on Zoom, and just talk. Act like it's a journal, a stream of consciousness. See what comes up. I, in Application Academy the other day, actually whipped out a graph of the Bloom's taxonomy table, which talk about dating ourselves, right? So this is like a way of thinking, right? And the baseline way of learning is I learned it and I remembered it. And pre-meds are great at that. What you want to do is work your way up to higher level of knowledge of what did it mean to me. So a classic mistake pre-meds make when they do this reflection is, here's what I learned. And generally, I recommend that you avoid I learned statements. What I would say is I learned is a good first step. But then what I want to know is, so what did you do with that knowledge? If you write an essay that's, I learned empathy matters, I'm going to think, you're 22, you didn't know empathy mattered, not impressed. What I would like to know is what it meant to you when you learned that, how it impacted you, how it changed you. So just when you probably will find yourself getting into some of those I learned statements, that's not bad. It just means you're not done. Keep going.
Yeah. I just want to bring up again, we talked about Mapped Pro and being able to ask questions of our advisors. I was just glancing at my email and saw this question come in. I zoomed it far enough so we don't see the student's name. But these are questions that students can ask to say, hey, right, here's all of my stuff. This is a question that this student directly asked right inside of Mapped Pro to ask these questions directly of us as advisors. And so if you don't have an advisor at your institution, if you want a second opinion, if you want kind of a little bit more support, $90 a year, $750 a month. If you do monthly, it's $10 a month. So go check that out. Again, another plug. I think Mapped Pro is probably the best thing that we do outside of Application Academy in terms of best value for helping students through this process.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Vibey Yo-Yo. Michael, do you recommend a story about patient Jane in my WA working activities to be also written about in the personal statement? It was very meaningful to me, but I'm worried about monotony. Thoughts? Thank you, Scott. This comes up all the time. Right? Everything comes up all the time because we answer so many questions. Is something I write about in my personal statements go in my activities? If I write about it in my activities, can it go in the personal statement? There's a lot of confusion around this. And I've seen students leave out amazing foundational stuff in their activity section because they're like, well, I talked about it in my personal statement. I'm like, oh, no. But potentially same story, same patient, maybe an issue. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if it's a enormously impactful story, in this case about Jane, then I would write about that in the personal statement and use a different story in the activities description, even if it's a most meaningful one. I don't know that using the same example is advisable. I would say write about a different story that also impacted you. But I would put the most meaningful one in the personal statement.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
All right.
Mohib, with Mapped, would someone read my personal statement? No. So we do have limits on what we can do inside of the chat advising. It's for basic Q&A. Hey, look at my grades, look at my activities. What are your thoughts? Am I want to apply this year? Am I missing something? Hey, I'm a freshman. What classes should I be thinking about taking? That's where Mapped Pro and our chat advising come into play. When it comes to personal statement editing and feedback, we do have separate packages for that. But that is a lot more in-depth, a lot more hands-on than I wouldn't say it's more hands-on than Mapped Pro because we're in there answering questions. But yeah, it's a different level of interaction and does cost more.
Mm-hmm.
Afwa, is it acceptable if one of my meaningful experiences is something that occurred the summer right before freshman year of college? Rachel, another one. I hate to say it, comes up all the time. When can I start writing about things that happen in my life?
So the short answer is it can vary year to year. Always read your application handbooks. I'm going to start with teaching you how to catch your own fish. Right now, the prevailing school of thought is anything that's after high school graduation is fair game. So it sounds like this is fine. It's the summer before freshman year of college. So presumably you'd already graduated from high school.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people say after the start of college. We say after the end of high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Part of it for me is if you take a gap year, which is less common in the States, I think. More people are likely to take a gap year after college as opposed to between high school and college. But
yep.
I want to leave that possibility. Not everyone goes straight to college.
Yep.
All right. What else?
Drugs. Just say no. Is non-clinical volunteering okay?
Because that's real effective. Sorry, continue.
Just as effective as abstinence. Is non-clinical volunteering okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Panky. Is non-clinical volunteering okay to include in the personal statement or should typically only be in the activity section? Scott, non-clinical volunteering. Personal statement is why do you want to be a doctor?
Right.
Thoughts?
I would say I would not put it in the personal statement, just because it's seemingly less relevant to the basic question at hand, which is why do you want to go to medical school and be a doctor? So it could be confusing to a admissions committee if you go into talking about, whatever capacity you were doing volunteer work that was non-clinical. The argument could be made, well, you could do that as a social worker, or you could do that as a, some other type of profession. So it deviates off of the main point of the essay. So I would say no.
Yep.
Justin asks, how do I classify my hours spent volunteering at my local hospital? I've done volunteer patient transport and delivering miscellaneous requests to the patient's hospital room. Again, all the time coming up this type of question of, is it clinical? Is it not clinical? How do I do things? Remember that a physician's job is not 100% clinical. So if you're looking at your position and you think it's a clinical job, but you're like, but I have non-clinical things that I do, that's okay, right? There are always going to be non-clinical things that happen in clinical positions. So do your best to classify it as you think is truthfully so, and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't just focus on all the non-clinical things in your
right.
Logan, do you have any cheap MCAT prep resource recommendations? I've been using Khan Academy and Blueprint's free resources and wondering if there are any other low-cost resources you would recommend.
I heard there was this thing called the MCAT podcast.
The MCAT podcast, the MCAT
Free?
Cars podcast, both free. So amazing resources there. Any other thoughts, Rachel? Where can people get some cheap prep resources besides going to the library and using all of the kind of books that are probably there to check out?
Yeah, agreed. The MCAT has not had any major changes since 2015. So just in terms of content review, Khan is pretty good. Khan was going to obsolete their MCAT materials several years ago, and Premed's pretty much rioted. They just said no. And luckily the AAMC and Khan worked it out, but Khan is not putting any money or effort into the MCAT resources. So, again, they're fine. Can't beat free, not getting updated. But so whether you're using Khan or using books, if the information's a few years old, it should still be pretty relevant. And then you just have to keep looking for practice material. You do need to pay for AAMC material. I know you said cheap, but that's just money you've got to spend. And then if you're low on additional practice material, what you might want to look at is, you mentioned Blueprint's free resources. Almost all of the major test prep companies have some free resources. So if you can't afford to make the investment to buy third-party exams, you might be able to cobble together some third-party exams by using free Blueprint, free Kaplan, free Princeton, and so on, so that you're saving those AAMC tests for closer to the official.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost mandatory, criminal if you don't do the AAMC exams. The AAMC does have a free exam finally that they're letting students take, so that's great. And then don't sleep on FAP. So if you think you may qualify for FAP through the AAMC, I believe their threshold is still increased now, where it's like 400% above the poverty line.
Yep.
You qualify for FAP. It's one of the good things that the AAMC does, where they don't have a cap of FAP funds. If you qualify, you get it. It's not first come, first serve. So really look into the fee assistance program through the AAMC.
Agreed. And as a reminder, we are, friends with Blueprint, so just full disclosure, we work with them. They're our partner. But if you have fee assistance from the AAMC, Blueprint also offers you some discounts, not on all of their programs. I think not on the 101 tutoring, but on the courses. So if you get FAP, definitely go see what else Blueprint can offer you at a substantial rate. And we also do that. So if you have fee assistance from AMCAS or COMAS and you're looking to get application coaching, we also have a discount for our Application Academy students who qualify for FAP. So get it to save on MCAT and AAMC materials and see what other doors it opens for you.
Yeah. Monica asks, is June 3rd MCAT too late to apply this cycle? Is it better to wait until next cycle? June 3rd is just fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're also working on your application too.
See.
Yep.
C for concurrent.
Donald, would being a greeter at a hospital where I sign in patients and patients' families and take them to pre-op PAC-UB clinical experience? Negative. Any
Agree.
dissent there? Agree?
No, you're not interacting with the patient in a way directly related to their health. It's not clinical. Yeah. Good healthcare experience. If that's the only thing you can get, take it. Let your volunteer manager know you want something more robust.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
RK. Starting a clinical job after graduation in May, applying this cycle, would it be better to apply slightly late, say early July, to let experience accumulate and reflect on personal statement? Oh, Scott, this is a good loaded question here. Mm-hmm. So let's say I apply early July. I'm going to start working at this job in June. I'm going to have a whole month under my belt, and boy, it's going to change my life, and I'm going to be able to talk about it on my personal statement. Apply this cycle, or maybe what I might hear you say is wait a cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit on other things. You know, what other clinical experience do you have? Mm-hmm. You know, is this that important that you want to delay your application either a few months and kind of risk the lateness of the application, or postpone it a year to get that experience? Or do you have other experiences, you know, to talk about and that are relevant? I wonder about that kind of stuff when you're talking about this question. So I don't know that we have enough information here to really make a determination, but I would say, you know, if you don't have a lot of clinical experience, then yeah, you may want to consider waiting a cycle to let this, you know, let this accumulate considerably more than 1 month. Yeah. You know, because when you're talking about 1 month, you know, a week of it's going to be training. Yeah. And then so you really, then you're down to 3 weeks, and you know, and you know, you don't really have a clue for a little bit of that, even though you've been trained. And so I don't know. This sounds, I'm you know, I'm a little suspect of this just based on what information we have here. So
yep.
Yeah. So, and again, let's clarify. We're not saying it's not going to be enough hours. What we're saying is it's not likely to be impactful enough for you to understand why this is important for your decision to pursue medicine and all this other stuff. Right. If you have tons of clinical experience already and you're like, well, this is a new thing and I potentially want this on my application, that's a different discussion. The way the question's written, I'm wondering if this is like their first clinical experience. So good luck, RK.
Yeah.
La la la. For the essay explaining my misdemeanor, the prompt says to exclude it if my story is one of the 3 things they said to exclude. If my story applies to one of the 3 things, should I still include it? What? I hate these questions. It's like, they told me not to do it, but should I do it anyway?
I know. It's also like, I read the instructions, but I don't like them. So will you help me interpret? But I don't have the context you have. La, 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 we want to help you. But there's just not enough data here. The prompt says to exclude if your story is one of the 3 things.
Yep. If you're one of the 3, exclude it. Don't include it. No need to out yourself. If they're saying, don't out yourself for these 3 reasons, you're like, well, that's me. Then don't do it. Yeah, I obviously understand, right? There's fear of like, but what if, and if they're gonna think I'm trying to hide something, right? If the MCAT is pretty clear what to exclude, follow those rules, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And let me just give one slight caveat to that, and that is often these application services say, for example, if the record was expunged or whatever, then you don't include it. And your lawyer told you it was expunged, so you're not going to include it. Get written documentation from your lawyer that shows a court record that it was expunged. Because I've heard it before where the lawyer says one thing, never filed the paperwork, so it wasn't expunged. It's on your record. I mean, it gets messy. So just get a document that shows from the court, not an email from your lawyer that says, yeah, it's expunged, a document from the court that says it's expunged.
Yeah. And you don't need to submit that anywhere, but just in
for your own
case
protection.
you have it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I did an episode with Uncle Larry, with Larry the lawyer. 2 episodes with him. If you just Google Larry Cohen Medical School HQ, those episodes will come up. And it was specifically around this discussion of kind of just how questions are asked and do you have to answer based on the question. Go check those out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ewan Tring, do you think it is possible to study for the MCAT in 2 months? I plan on taking the exam in April. Would it be a good idea to do it in the case that I may need to retake it again? Rachel, MCAT test prep expert, 2 months.
The number one mistake I see people make is allowing 2 months when they need 3.
Yep.
That said, Ewan, you might be the one. Some people can do it in 6 or 8 weeks.
Yep.
I've known a couple really annoying wizards who did 3 weeks of prep and got a good score. I think we can all collectively agree that they're not our friends. We respect them, but we don't want to hang out with them. No, most people need 300 to 400 hours of study, and that's very hard to do in 2 months. It depends on what else is on your plate. There's a lot of assumptions baked into this question. You're saying I plan on taking an exam in April. Would that be a good idea in case I need to retake it again? I mean, if you take it in April, you won't get the scores back to May. So if you retake, you're going to be doing it in the summer after your primary application ideally was already submitted. So yeah, I mean, there's always going to be this balance of you should take it as early as you can, but not until you're ready. And what I tend to recommend is right now, just assume April's going to work. Truck. And as you get closer to that test date before I think it's your 10-day out deadline is your last chance to cancel. So maybe at like 2.5 weeks out to give yourself some cushion, start doing some deep analysis of your practice test results. And the thing is however you're scoring on your last couple practice tests, if you're taking them under realistic testing conditions, that's probably how you're going to do on test day.
Yep. Good luck.
Yeah.
Sudik, undergraduate GPA 3.2 with a W and 5 C's, not an upward trend. This looks like the question that came through Mapped. W and 5 C's, not an upward trend.
Right.
I took a master's with a 3.7 GPA. Do I need a post-bacc again, or my master's degree is fine? So many incomplete questions, my friends. What's your master's in? How long was your master's? Impossible to answer, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some more info.
Upward trends should involve upper level science.
Mm-hmm.
Just a friendly reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go back, Alexis. Give us that comment.
Alyssa says, I'm in my freshman year of undergraduate. Welcome. What should I be starting to do this summer to start preparing for medical school? Oh, summertime, beach and suntans, right, Scott?
So, yeah, I mean, I think as a freshman, a lot of research programs that for undergraduates, you have to have completed your sophomore year before you're going to be eligible to apply for them or go into them. So if you're in your freshman year undergraduate, what should be, you could do some shadowing, you could do some volunteering. Those are great things to do in the summer, in addition to just, having some fun, travel or whatever. But I think that shadowing after freshman year, shadowing or volunteer work or even a paid position, depending on what you can find, would be advisable. But don't feel like you've got to do, a whole lot of stuff. But I think that, searching out what your opportunities are and see what's available and use the summer to get some of those things that maybe you couldn't get as as at rich a level as during the year when you're doing coursework and all the other stuff, then you can focus on it in the summer.
Yep.
Manure, should the supporting evidence, watering of the seed in the personal statement, be specifically clinical, or can it be a mix of non-clinical leadership and clinical activities? So we already answered a similar question to this one. Your personal statement is, why do you want to be a doctor? My general philosophy, I think we're all pretty aligned here at medical school headquarters, is that clinical experiences help support why do you want to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. If you're using research to support why you want to be a doctor, yes, it's tangentially related, but not directly related, right? It's like, I like research, therefore I want to be a doctor. I'm a good leader, therefore I want to be a doctor. So typically it's the clinical activities based on how we recommend writing a personal statement that should be used. With that said, it's your personal statement. Do with it as you want.
Yes.
We are not the gatekeepers of truth. Bruce says, hi, folks. My son is taking the MCAT for the first time in 2 weeks. Woo! Any advice to pass on to him? Scott, some motivation. 2 weeks to go.
Keep breathing.
The final countdown.
As I was saying, I think that Bruce, number one, I respect the fact that you're, taking the interest in helping your son in this way, and that's great. I really think that my advice is the week of the exam to scale back on studying as it gets closer. So that the day before your exam, you're really doing very little of real studying and stuff. Don't take a practice test the day before you go into the real test or anything like that. You need to do some relaxation things, get out, go out to a movie or, get into some relaxation, whatever you do for relaxation, to kind of get yourself in a good headspace for this, thing that's going to happen the next day. So, so I would say 2 to 3 days out, you want to be doing, very limited amount of studying, any type of last minute content review maybe, or, going over passages that you had done on the previous weekend's practice exam, a full-length exam, and then, kind of reviewing stuff that you maybe got wrong or whatever. That would be my advice. Rachel, would you agree with that?
Yeah. Another week and a half of good studying, mostly probably test review at this point, like Scott said.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, if you almost think about marathon prep, right? Like they call tapering the last few weeks because your work starts to go down. I have a good friend who hates tapering. It's like really bums her out, but you got to do it. You got to let your body rest, let your brain rest, get sleep, get good nutrition,
sleep, nutrition, hydration. Yes. Definitely.
Yep. Good.
Jasmine asks, non-trad just starting. Welcome to the dark side. Looking to get into research. How do I get involved? I've always been interested. Also, how to get a science letter of rec. So this is one thing where I will say non-trads are potentially at a disadvantage. A lot of research happens at institutions, colleges, schools, and a lot of non-trads are maybe going to community colleges or going to extension programs where they aren't as plugged into the research world. And so you may have to do a little bit extra work, Jasmine, to find out what's going on. It's going to be specific to where you are at, the institution where you're potentially doing some post-bacc work. and just ask questions of faculty. Say, hey, I'm a pre-med. I want to potentially get involved in research. Do you know anyone? What's going on? If you just Google like research GI or research cardiac, based on where you're located, whether hospital or colleges, and see science LORs. I'm assuming you're going to go back to school, so you get those science LORs from your letter from your professors.
Yeah.
And get to know them and sit in the front of the classroom and ask good questions and go to office hours, do all the stuff.
That's actually an area where I think non-trads have an advantage. Yes, I mean, if you've been out of school for a long time, but if you're back in school, you may be a little more comfortable with that idea of kind of networking and building a relationship. It's hard to be a teacher, man. I mean, sometimes it just feels like you're shouting into the void. So if there's someone out there who's making eye contact and taking notes and showing up to office hours, like, it's refreshing.
Yep.
Anthony, I started off my undergrad as a pre-PA student and switched to pre-med recently. Do I include the shadowing PAs in my med school application? Does it look bad that I started off pre-PA? Oh, Scott. PA shadowing. Great. You've explored, right? It's not bad.
No, I don't think it's bad. I think, what you want to do in the reflection part of that activity description is talk about what you learned and why you ultimately, made the decision that PA wasn't for you and that you wanted to go to medical school instead. I think that reflection part will be really important to iterate in that description.
Yeah. Yep. So when it comes to the personal statement, again, with how we generally talk about it, the seed is what was that exposure to healthcare. And for you, Anthony, your seed is going to lead to pre-PA, lead to wanting to be a PA. And at some point you have some sort of epiphany moment, a pivot point. I've typically been calling it lately, in terms of what it is that's now drawing you to becoming a physician versus a PA. Yeah, typically makes for a good story. So
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right, 155. Yeah, time for one or two more.
Dolly, how do you buy the Application Academy program with the FAP waiver? I did the questionnaire and uploaded my FAP verification, but what is the next step? The next step is we send you an email. So just be patient. Thank you for doing that. I'll go check today. I usually check a couple times a week. So
thanks, Dolly. Looking forward to seeing you in Academy.
Yeah.
Maz, is a 1-year Master of Science in the Biological Sciences considered equivalent to a post-bacc? How does this work with GPA for admissions? Separate, together, other? Oh, Scott, let's hear your spiel again in terms of undergraduate post-bacc versus master level work for grade repair.
Yeah. So I'm a little caught off by the Master of Science in Biological Sciences. I'm going to assume that this is essentially a master's degree in biology. And so if that's true, then what that's going to involve is a lot of research stuff, bench, kinds of things. It's not all going to be didactic in the classroom, sitting there, getting it out, taking exams and, all of that. And so I would say it's not equivalent to a post-bacc because of that. Now, does that mean it's bad? No, it doesn't mean it's bad. And the further question that you ask, Maz, is they're going to produce, the application services are going to produce a number of different GPAs for your application. One is going to be a cumulative undergraduate GPA. One is going to be a cumulative graduate GPA. There will also be an overall GPA, which will include everything. There will be science GPA and non-science GPAs for all of that as well. And so they're going to see everything distinctly, and be able to try to figure out how they want to interpret your Master of Science program in comparison to what they're looking for, and also in comparison to your undergraduate experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and different medical schools are going to view that differently depending on the paradigm that they approach it with. And so there's no, definite this way or that way or whatever. I am of the mind that post-bacc courses are often the more conservative route, because more medical schools kind of know how to interpret undergraduate classwork.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, if you're in the master's program now, which you really don't say that that's true, but if you end up going into the master's program, then I think you do well. You need to do great in that program, and show that you've made a big effort and that you performed well.
Yeah. All right, my friends, we have come to another end of Premed Office Hours, formerly called Ask Mapped, formerly called Ask the Dean, formerly called, so we weren't here before. Thank you for coming and hanging out for this hour. We are here almost every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget Mapped Pro. 90+% of Mapped is free. You can track your grades, your activities, your MCAT score, get some kind of predetermined feedback based on data that you're giving us. You can look at a customized roadmap based on when you want to start medical school. Mapped Pro, 30 days free. Use that referral code. Will allow you to, number one, use my LORs, which is our new letter of recommendation service. You can request, store, manage, transmit letters out to AMCAS and ACOMAS TMDSAS. Unfortunately, for this application cycle, we cannot do. But more than that, based on all of the questions that we get here every week, you can ask questions right inside of our chat advising tool of our experts. So go ask questions. Use Mapped Pro.
Yep, we'll see you in there.
And if you want more one-on-one advising, we do offer that as well. You can just go to medicalschoolhq.net, click on the advising tab to see how we can help you in a one-on-one way. That's what we spend a lot of time with. There are a lot of students who are fortunately privileged enough to work with us. And then we do Application Academy and all the free stuff to help everyone else. So as much as we can.
Something for every budget you can do. Self-paced or hand-holding. We've got it all.
Got it all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great week.